Mr. Songwriter here.
Yeah.
And but I love that key of B. It's got a real high. It makes you get out there in terms of my vocal range. Anyway, it
Hmm.
stretches it to that point where I'm playing with the infinity there,
Hmm.
as far as I can go,
Right.
kind of
And I
thing.
guess your harp playing there is the same as
Yeah,
what you're doing in that B minor song.
right. But I'm
But
using a B
oh, you got
harmonica.
you have you
It's
switched
a
harmonicas.
B harmonica in the key of B.
Oh, okay. So
So it's
you're
first
playing straight
position.
first
Yeah.
position. Hmm, that's neat. Really nice. Sure sounds traditional.
It is. Well, it's within that sphere that I feel comfortable in. I've worked really hard to get
Hmm.
to being able to have this part of my repertoire, my feeling, my persona. I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever
Before we put
words.
that away, I just
Oh,
want to talk
okay,
about the
sure.
guitar a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell me about that guitar.
I was on tour in England in 1992. I was playing in the Lake District of uh, Kendal, is the name of the town. It was a brewery that had been turned into an art center, and it was a very elegant place. And I was doing two sets, and between shows, um, a guy named Vinnie Smith came backstage with this guitar, brand new. He had just made it, and you know, offered me, a chance to play it, and I just fell in love with it right away. And he wanted more money than I could afford to buy it, and he said, "Well, could you write me a note that you played it and you like it?" And I said, "No problem." And I wrote up all this crap. I didn't even know what I was saying. The beautiful balance of, because it was a great guitar. I wanted to sound like I appreciated it. So about a month later, I got back home, and my agent called me and said, "Do you know a guy named Vinnie Smith in England?" And I said, I couldn't think. My wife said, "That's the guy who showed you the guitar." So I said, "Oh, yeah, I know him. Why?" And he said, "He wants you to have the guitar and he'll sell it to you for cost." Um, how much is cost? And it was very affordable to me. And I had to go back to England to get it, but I had some more shows there. And I actually was on a show with John Lee Hooker, and he came. This guy, Vinnie Smith, came to the show as our guest, and I got the guitar, and I was flipped out.
Hmm.
It's koa wood, Hawaiian
Wow.
hardwood, very special with a cedar top. The cedar is very soft wood, and it's very loud, but it nicks real easy. And I am not
Hmm.
gentle on my instruments, so I got guys that come up to me and say, "Gee, is that from the '30s?" And it's not. But it's got a beautiful sound, and like I say, the balance on it is
Hmm.
fantastic. It's got a big bottom end, and yet the top is just as intense as it can be.
So I see you've got a new guitar here. Well, not new, but it looks like a lot more metallic than the previous one you played.
Yes, this is truly heavy metal. It's a steel-bodied National guitar. The Duolian is the model, and it was made in 1935. Um, when I first got this guitar, uh, the fingerboard, I think, was made of a very soft wood, like perhaps pear wood, and it was all rutted and pitted out, so it was very hard to fret it. And So Bob Jones, who does, uh, he's a phenomenal luthier in Brooklyn, who I've known for years and years, decided that we could put a Martin fingerboard on it, a bound board, um, ebony, so it'll last a couple of lifetimes at least. And it worked out perfectly. It's set up a little bit higher. The action on the strings is a little higher than my other guitar, so that the sustain, when you take a Sears deep well socket and put it on your little finger, you can. It has that beautiful sustain. I found that playing with a bottleneck or a slide of whatever kind, I worked in a gas station, and my friend, who was a mechanic, had to go to Sears to get some tools. And I'm just sort of hanging around, and I'd just begun playing the guitar. This was before I knew anything about bottleneck or slide, but I knew the concept of it. And there we were in the Craftsman tools and wrenches, and I picked up this thing and I put it on my finger, and it fit perfectly. And the light bulb went on over my head, and I said, "Gee, this is what I'm going to use for a slide." So since then, I've always $3.25 guaranteed for life. So I tune the guitar. This is tuned to an open A chord, which is E, A, E, A, C sharp, E. And it makes a nice, what they call Spanish tuning.
Yeah, it's kind of like open G tuning. It's just everything's a step up.
That's right, exactly.
Same relationship.
Exactly, the same relationship.
Right.
And I do that for, my vocal range, which I think is, more suited to me. So it's tuned up. The neck is held. It's a maple neck that is the same as when it was new. It has never been altered or anything. It's just straight as an arrow. In the early 60s, before I started playing professionally, I was in school in Ohio, like I said, and I used to drive up to Chicago sometimes on a weekend just to see if I could get to see these artists who I admired so much, like Howling Wolf and Muddy Waters. And I met a guy at the University of Chicago named Michael Bloomfield. And Michael knew everybody in Chicago. He knew Muddy Waters, and he knew Howling Wolf, and he knew Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williams, all these phenomenal players. And Michael was 17 and I was 18. And not only did he know these guys, they'd call him up on the stage to sit in with them. In 1960, 61. Wow. Oh, man. Michael was, I couldn't believe there was anybody like him in the world. He was phenomenal. And so my friendship with Michael led me into actually getting to hear phenomenal players like Wolf and Muddy and Little Walter. Although I never saw him play, I saw Sonny Boy Williamson play, and like I say, Michael hit me to a lot of things, and songs and styles of playing. He introduced me to Big Joe Williams, and Big Joe was a country blues guitar player, singer, who had been everywhere in the United States. He knew everybody, it seemed, and had this great way of playing. When I met Big Joe, I just driven from California to Chicago on my way back to New York. Stopped off to see Michael, I think more to show off my new car, my old new car. And Michael brought me down to Bob Kester's record store, where living in the basement was Big Joe Williams. And Michael introduced me to Big Joe. Joe, this is a young blues singer, John Hammond. And Joe went, and he's got a car. Oh, and Big Joe looked at me and said, listen, I'll let you play some harmonica with me if you drive me to these gigs. So I sure enough got to drive Big Joe to all these shows, and he let me play some harmonica with him every night. And I got to watch him play, and he was phenomenal. He had a 9-string guitar. He put 3 tuning pegs on the head of the top of the head, so that the top 3 strings were doubled, and it had this incredible 12-string sound to it. And he was a great player.